So next I want to talk about deworming strategies. And so the first is rotational deworming. And this was the tried and true method. I don't know, I guess if it was ever true, but it was what was recommended when I got into horses. And we'd rotate dewormers every 2 to 3 months and just pick a random dewormer and give it to our horses. And while this is what helped us get rid of large strongyls from being an issue, this is also what caused parasite resistance and put us in the problem we're in today. We were just deworming so frequently that the parasites were exposed to so much dewormer that they could adapt and overcome, and now a lot of our dewormers aren't effective. So if I can say one thing, just do not use this blind rotational deworming. Rather, so what should you use? Our strategic or targeted deworming is going to be the way to go now. Ideally, you're taking fecal egg counts periodically to determine shedding level, and then picking your dewormer type and frequency accordingly. This will also be targeted to different times of year. I would say the hardest thing is, I keep my horses at home, so it's easy to evaluate my herd. If you're at a boarding barn, it's really nice to get a full picture from all the horses, but a lot of places won't require fecal egg counts. They're not the cheapest when done by a vet clinic. I know up here we're probably around $30 last time I checked. I do my own now, and it is actually pretty affordable to do them by yourself. You have a little bit of upfront costs buying a microscope, the slides, things like that, but I bet you can get away with a kit for like $300. And after that, it probably costs about 5-10 cents per fecal egg count. So if you're going to be doing a lot, maybe your barn goes in on it together. It's more time consuming or tedious than anything else. But so here I have kind of a vague deworming recommendation of all horses should typically be dewormed 1 to 2 times a year. And so the time I'd always recommend to deworm a horse is in the fall, after the horse is removed from pasture, and you deworm with an ivermectin or moxidectin with praziquantel. And so knowing that the ivermectin can be I believe a little more effective for stomach bots right now, but the moxidectin can be more effective for encysted small strongyls. So I try to kind of alternate whether I'm doing ivermectin or moxidectin. So you go through fall. In the winter, if you're at a place where temperatures are consistently below 43 degrees Fahrenheit, parasite transmission is not happening. So you are wasting your money. You are encouraging parasite resistance by deworming them during that period. So I know, certain parts of the country aren't going to be falling below that, which is why I want the disclaimer. Places like Arizona might benefit from more deworming in our winter months compared to our summer months. But then going into the spring, if I'm going to deworm again, I normally deworm before they go out on pasture, get any residual parasites that might be left over, and I deworm them right before, like about a week before they go out on pasture with ivermectin or moxidectin again. I don't do tapeworms this time. I only do tapeworms once a year. Then, if I have a horse who is more of a moderate or a high shedder, now I'm going to give them ideally a different dewormer, and that's where my asterisk comes in. So down below you see, if pyrantel or fenbendazole are not effective for your horse herd, don't give it to them. Go back to an effective dewormer, which is likely ivermectin or moxidectin. It comes down to, yes, I'm deworming them, but if I'm deworming them with something that isn't working, is it a useful practice? And kind of the conclusion we've come to is not really. So I'd often deworm moderate shedders one additional time, and then my high shedders might be dewormed twice in between the spring and the fall deworming. I also have a note in here that we don't need to deworm in high temperatures, so about greater than 91 degrees Fahrenheit, especially when it's also dry, so if there's a drought, because hot and dry climates also don't have a lot of parasite transmission. So I remember the summers I spent in Missouri, and we were on a heat advisory for like 9 weeks straight where it was just above 100 degrees. I wouldn't be deworming then, even though it says to deworm late summer, right? I would be maybe bumping that out a bit or only doing that more fall deworming. And again, winters, we've had some winters that have been kind of warm, even up in Minnesota, Wisconsin. And so it's not the end all be all. You need to use a little bit of common sense. And that's why understanding how the parasites work, what's going on is important so you can adjust your deworming protocol accordingly. But my biggest thing is I'd say at least once a year for every horse with an ivermectin or moxidectin with praziquantel. I guess one other thing I want to note, horses who are on pasture are the ones that are going to be most likely to have parasites. That doesn't mean don't let your horses graze pasture, because I think that's a great management practice. But just being cognizant, if I have a horse in California or Arizona where they're not out on fresh grass, they probably don't have tapeworms, so I don't need to do praziquantel. I'm not sure. They likely don't have a huge strongylls burden. Bots, maybe, pinworms could be, but a lot of those that are transmitted on pasture grass, they're likely not to have. And so this is going to be very geographically specific. My recommendations are more focused to the Midwest, but be aware if you're traveling, if you're, managing a barn in a different region, understand the basics of it, how temperature and climate and weather plays in, but a lot of places will have geographically specific deworming recommendations.